Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today.
Hey, welcome back to Find a Moment. This is Jennifer, and I've got Gretchen here. We are picking back up where we've left off. We are now in our third episode of our parenting series, and this has been a very expanding and interesting and challenging conversation, and surprising in some ways. Our series so far, we've had an introduction episode, and then we had another episode air this past Monday. So our episodes come out every Monday, if you're wondering, if you're new. And last week we talked about myths and misconceptions and mistakes that we've made in parenting. And we did not get to finish that because, there's a lot to talk about there. So we're going to be continuing that conversation. And we talked about all kinds of things. We said some no-no words, and we've gotten some good feedback about that. I bet you're wondering what those no-no words are. But we've gotten some interesting feedback. We've continued to encounter some things that unfortunately are surprising in a not great way. Some of the things that we see on social media that are being advertised, and narratives and commentaries and voices and promises that are really just not realistic. And yet moms and parents in general, just parents who are so desperate to find something that will help them do this parenting thing, I'm doing air quotes, the right way, in a way that honors their children and the Lord and will produce good fruit now and in the future. I think people are being led in a direction that is not reliable or realistic. And so we kind of feel like, and some of what's happening there is people are selling things. People are selling a method or a model or a pattern or a reset that...
Or a script.
Yeah, that makes promises that really are just not, they're just empty. And there might be some good nuggets in there, but I can promise you that there is not going to be anything that you can buy or find or read or whatever that is going to fix all of your parenting problems. So with that, I feel like there's probably a good disclaimer that we should make. Gretchen, do you want to share that?
Definitely. We just wanted to share a little bit of a disclaimer that our heart from the beginning of this podcast has been to be two friends who have walked through a lot of life together and love to talk and have conversation with each other. Our heart has been to share our conversations in hope that it would encourage other people and bless other people. And we do not claim to be experts and authorities in all the things. We are basically sharing our conversations and kind of what's been on our hearts and what God has taught us, sharing that with each other, and then sharing that with you, and hoping that you will join in the conversation and that you will have similar conversations with your in real life friends and people who encourage you and walk with you, that you will continue these conversations. And we do not get paid for this podcast. We do not have any endorsements for this podcast. So really, I was thinking about, I'm like, actually, it costs us to do this podcast. It is not something that we are reaping financial benefits. I will say we are reaping friendship benefits and connection benefits, because having intentional conversation, it's just such a gift. But we are not selling you anything, and we are not getting anything other than intangibles from this podcast. So it's interesting how our own personal algorithms on social media will change with each series. It is, it's crazy, but it's not, because that is how the system is set up, right? So there are people who will sell you PDFs for hundreds of dollars, promising results in your parenting. And we just want to caution you that you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on PDFs. Parenting is supposed to be sanctifying. You are not supposed to come to parenting perfect with all the answers and all the formulas and implement them perfectly and then have perfect children. That is not how relationships work. And so anyone who is promising you a quick fix, that's not what parenting is about. And it may be a quick fix for a season or a moment, but looking to formula, looking to external things to foster relationship and to help you with parenting, we just, in our cumulative years of parenting and relationships, it just doesn't work. And I don't want that to sound like parenting's hard, there's nothing you can do about it, suck it up. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that we have to come to parenting from a place of humility and a place of, okay, God, you've given me these children, and I want you to show me yourself. I want you to make me more like Jesus as I raise these children. And so we have to come to parenting just as teachable as we want our children to be. So that is not something that can be worked out with a formula or 3 easy steps or anything like that. So that's kind of the heart and disclaimer and little follow-up from what we have seen over the past couple weeks of doing this series. And I really also want to thank the people who have reached out. We've received multiple messages and a lot of, I'm just shocked, and maybe I shouldn't be shocked, but there are young Christian parents who are still hearing the narrative that it's a biblical mandate to spank. And so many of you have reached out to us and said, thank you. We have been waiting for your generation to say something. And it's interesting, some of the messages, it's children who were raised in that legalistic spanking environment that then now they have their own children and they don't want to continue what they felt was harmful in their upbringing, but yet the Christian narratives they're receiving are the same things. And so thank you for reaching out. Thank you for having the courage and the vulnerability to share your stories with us. We really appreciate it. And we just pray that this series is a blessing and that it provides some freedom if you are feeling pressure or kind of that legalism and fear-based formula narrative.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you clarified all of that. And even in our show notes, which Gretchen puts all of that together because she's magical, even in the show notes, which have the list of all of the resources that we mention and maybe even some things that we didn't mention in the episodes, that those resources, none of those are affiliate links.
Correct.
None of that. So when you make purchases from our show notes, we don't get any kickback from that too. And when we first started doing this, I thought, could there be a possible, could this be income producing at some point? I thought that for myself. And I'm so glad that we have not chosen that direction because it allows our messages to be untainted by any kind of conflict of interest or anything like that. Like, we can come to this and truly say, not only are we not earning anything, it is costing. And I know that there's financial investment that you've made, Gretchen, and a tremendous amount of time. Yes, we reap the benefits of our friendship growing deeper. Even if that were the only benefit, it'd be so worth it. But I do feel like it's important for listeners to know we do not gain anything.
We see this as a ministry.
Yeah.
We see this as an outreach, and we hope that you receive it that way.
So to keep going through our conversation, some of the things that we touched on last episode were a couple books that we really feel like are harmful that are still being circulated. And we talked about spanking. We talked about first-time obedience. We talked about timeouts a little bit.
And sleep training. Cry
And
it
sleep
out.
training. We talked about cry it out. So those are hot topics. And I feel like a lot of people don't feel permission to speak into that because it is kind of this deep entanglement of convictions and kind of your personal belief around things and how you were raised and what you think your parents did right or wrong. And then what the people around you are doing and what appears to be working for them. And just keep in mind that your children are different from everybody else's children.
Yes.
The children under your roof are going to be different from one another. And so you're not going to find a formula or a book or anything that is going to magically fit your particular scenario in your home. So I think we'll kind of pick back up on some of the things, because we've definitely had some more conversations and encounter as our algorithm has gotten to know us better this week. We've come across more conversations and resources, and just the spanking thing continues to come up. I would say a continuation of that would be just this question that I kind of had in my mind. Would it be appropriate? Is it even legal or humane or ethical or moral to physically punish adults who have broken the law? Why don't we do that? I mean, I think that's a fair question. If we because it's considered cruel and unusual punishment, is that where the ACLU gets involved? Like, why don't we do that? Because really, the rod passages in Scripture, those passages, the original translation is not referring to children. It's referring to young men, young people who know what's right, and yet they choose foolishness and rebellion. And so why, if we are going to follow the Bible's wisdom, why aren't we applying that for adults who are foolish and unwise and who break the law? Why don't we do that? And if there's whatever your reason is for not doing that to adults, let's take that and say, well, okay, well, do we discard that when we're talking about young children who have not even been fully trained? They're not wise people who understand boundaries and rules and consequences in the way that the world works, and they have a fully developed understanding and grasp of authority. I feel like there's such duplicity there, and I feel like when you put it in those terms, it's really hard to defend doing that to a child who doesn't understand. Their little bodies and their little brains are still being formed, and we are to train them and teach them. So when that question just came to my mind, I thought, how can we justify that?
Yes.
Why don't we do that to adults? If it's appropriate for children, why don't we do it for adults?
Right.
And anybody that trains animals will tell you that's not an appropriate way to train an animal.
Yes.
Why would we do that with children?
Yes. Oh, that's such a kind of taking a step back way to think about it. And I think even when people think, oh, well, you only spank with this calm attitude, you never spank out of anger, I feel like that just makes me feel sick in my stomach too. Like, what is that communicating to your child? What do you think?
I can't reconcile it. I
Yes.
can't reconcile it. Some of the content that I've come across recently on social media, there's an MD that came into my algorithm, and he works in pediatric psychiatry, and he talks about how spanking may achieve the outcome that we're wanting, but it's not producing the change, like the heart change that discipline is meant to create. So your child's behavior may change, but that's because of fear, and fear is a motivator, but that's not our goal in discipline and correction is not to generate fear. The goal is to teach and to train. So if we teach our children that they will get physically disciplined if they do a certain behavior, they're not internalizing the heart change behind it. They're not internalizing the heart or the reason for that. They are internalizing, I don't want this outcome, so I'm going to avoid it by not doing that behavior. If the purpose of discipline is heart change and proper response to authority as parents, spanking does not work to this. And I just do not see how spanking accomplishes heart change. It accomplishes behavior change because it's a motivator through fear and avoidance. And then if you think about, okay, well, how does Jesus instruct us in heart change? What does Jesus say? If we think about that, the way that Jesus led the disciples and the way that he taught his people, that would be our model for parenting, not through fear.
Yes.
And repetition. Some of what we encountered too on social media was saying first time obedience. You shouldn't have to count to 3.
And you shouldn't have to repeat yourself.
Right. That's wild. That's wild to me. There's tons of repetition in the scriptures, even from Jesus, even from Paul. And Jesus repeated himself with Peter on more than one occasion. And if there wasn't a need for, if first time obedience were achievable and realistic, then there would have been no reason for God to send Jesus. And I think too about the scripture where Jesus says, you forgive 70 times 7.
Yes.
Again, that does not align with the concept of first time obedience. It just doesn't. You cannot, as a believer, you cannot reconcile both of those.
And I want to say that it is never too late. And so we don't want any parents who are listening, if this is kind of the narrative that you have followed and that has been shown and taught to you, you do not have to continue in something just because it's what you have done. And I have known plenty of parents who have sat with their children and said, listen, Mom and Dad spanked because we thought that was what we were supposed to do as parents. And we are going to change the way that we parent you. And we are sorry. And we want to, and discuss kind of the new ways that your home will be. And so it is never too late to do something different. When you know better, you do better, right? And again, not to say that what we are saying is the ultimate authority. I mean, you definitely need to pray about it and talk to your spouse about it. But we are saying if you have lived under the bondage of this narrative, that there is freedom and you don't have to walk in it. And it is not a biblical mandate. And there is so much healing that can happen. And I've seen it in multiple families who started out with very harsh adversarial parenting, who then became more advocate parenting, and their children have reaped the benefits of that. So, and their relationships and all of that. So it is never too late, and we don't want you to feel condemnation and shame from this conversation either.
Yeah, that's important. I think when we ignore our convictions because we're doing what we think we're supposed to do, I know this is how I felt with the spanking thing when our kids were really little. There was like this hidden shame that I had because there was something in me that knew that it was wrong, but yet I kept doing it. And so I think because I was ignoring my conviction, I knew that I was ignoring my instinct and my discerning, the discernment that I was having, that it was wrong, that conviction. I knew I was ignoring it, which was also, I look back on that now and I feel like that was disobedience too.
Wow.
But I didn't understand it because I was just so insecure in my own judgment. And I was so desperate to get it right. I'm air quoting, to get it right. And part of that's also like a personality flaw that I have, is like this fear of not getting it right, this fear of failing. So I'm an Enneagram 1. And that is a huge driver for me, is wanting to get things right and wanting to be good and wanting to be without flaw. And that, okay, first of all, that's just not realistic. That's that can go in an unhealthy direction. But I also even see that now sometimes, like with my personality, I'll get angry as a response to some kind of issue, a parenting issue with our kids at home. I'll get angry, and then the girls will be like, Mom, why are you so mad? And then I realize it's because I'm angry that I can't figure out how to get this right. I can't figure out how to make you happy. I'm setting a boundary that I have a conviction about, and you're not thanking me for it. Like, what planet are we on? That's not realistic. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I'm motivated by love. I'm motivated to do what I believe is right and good and best for you. And you're giving me a hard time about it. You're not grateful. You're complaining. but I'm doing this because I'm wanting to protect and love you. Why aren't you thanking me? And then I'm angry because I feel like I have this like weird customer service kind of mindset. That's kind of a weird thing that I've had to discover about myself. But sometimes I can be angry because I don't feel like I'm getting it right. And sometimes you can get it right, but your kid's not going to thank you for it, and they're not going to like it in the moment. And right. I don't know why, but it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yes. I think one of the mistakes that I made was taking things personally.
Yes.
And I think it's very easy as parents to take all the things personally. So, Jennifer, do you have any, would you happen to have one or two mistakes you've made along the way that you want to share?
Oh, my word. I have a lot. One of the things that I dealt with really early, both of our girls were very verbal, very young. And that was fun. And it made things interesting and cute. But it also could be confusing for me because when they're really young, like 4 and 5 and 6, and they can argue, for me at the time, I got confused about what needed to be happening. And I allowed some conversations and arguments to continue and I was participating, that really should have not happened. I should have, I've got one of my girls who's a really strong negotiator and very intelligent, really good at like convincing and persuading. And those are skills that are going to serve her well in some other parts of life, but not when it comes to like discipline and behavior stuff sometimes. But it would confuse me, and I would find myself kind of trapped in this conversation with a very young person when I really should have just walked away. I should have said, this is how it is.
Yes.
And, and I don't even remember what some of the conversations were about, but there was one time when I put one of our girls in timeout, which I don't think now I would use timeout at all. But she was in timeout, and I went back upstairs to her room to talk to her and to kind of wrap up our, do you understand why? And, that kind of conversation that you're supposed to have. And then it somehow turned back into her defending what she did and not taking responsibility. And then she said, Mom, I've only been doing this kid thing for 6 years.
Oh, I love that.
And I said, well, guess what? There is no mom school. Doctors have doctor school. Vets have vet school. Teachers have teacher school. There's no mom school. I've only been doing this mom thing for 6 years. And her eyes got so big. And I know she was thinking, you should be fired. But when she said that, and every time I've retold that story over the years, it's made me realize she's keenly aware of her childishness. And that's not a fault. That's by design. She's a child.
Right.
And I had expectations that even she knew weren't realistic. Yes. And she had to tell me that. So I've always looked back on that and thought, like, even now, what expectations y'all are getting up, y'all are driving yourselves places, you're managing your own money, you're cooking food, you're doing all of these things, and yet you're still, I get confused about their capacity and their capability. And I think if we as parents were able to, if they had little hinges on their head and we could like flip it open and look down inside and see all the things that are going on, I think we would have so much more compassion.
Yes.
Because we don't understand what they're carrying and all the things that are swimming around in their minds. We can't comprehend. Just like they can't comprehend all the things like our mental load.
Right. Right.
It's just hard. We forget.
Yes, we sure do.
And then we're like, why didn't you do your laundry? What about you?
I think one of the mistakes that I made was I was keenly aware of what other people thought of me. And I was afraid of what people thought of me when I would be out in public with my children. And when you are a mom with, I had 3 to 5 children that I would be out and about with over the years, and having a group of children, and you really don't know for sure how they're going to behave at any particular time. And I just remember feeling the pressure of like, they have to behave. They have to do the right thing when they were all little. And I feel like I went out of the house with not necessarily anxiety, but just that unsettled of like, what's going to happen when we're out and about? Is someone going to get in a tiff with each other, or are they going to, and so I was so worried about what other people thought of me that it robbed a lot of the joy of just being out and about with my children. And so if I could go back, I would just enjoy being out and about with my children and take it as it comes. And I feel like I do that more now, to the point that I can sometimes be oblivious, which is great. But then it also makes me aware now, like when we talked about, and I can't remember if it was our introductory episode about being at the grocery store late at night and there's a child crying. And now it makes me keenly aware when I am out and about and I see a mom and maybe her child is crying or doing whatever they're doing, and you could see that she feels the pressure. I try as much as I can to stop and say, you are doing a great job. You are doing your best. And there's been plenty of times I've asked if I could help, or because I just feel like as women, we need to step in. Like we've talked about historically, there were grandparents and aunts and uncles and all living around you. And we need to be the ones that step in and help each other and don't sit back and judge each other, because you never know what that child and what that parent is going through when you're out and about. Maybe it's a single mom and she is working 2 jobs. Maybe it's a child who is out of the box and neurodivergent, and it is all that parent can do to be out trying to buy shoes for that child or something. Everyone has a story. So I wish I would not have cared so much about what people thought. My husband would always take the kids like to Home Depot or Lowe's or any of those kind of big bucks, stores on like a Saturday morning to get whatever he needed. And he would have them on like the big like cart thing, not like a buggy cart, but like, the big moving thing cart. And of course, he would be running down the aisles and spinning it, and the employees would come and say, I'm sorry, sir, you can't have children on there. And he would say, nobody loves them more than I do. I got this, and so he didn't care what people thought. And he received that whatever, to where I am like mortified, like, I'm so sorry, babe, get them off the car. And he's like, we're fine, Right. So I saw that freedom in him, and I wanted that. And it just took me a lot of years to be able to just be like, well, of course, no one loves them more than I do. And we can have fun out and about. And I will say that from the time our children were little, we always took them to restaurants to eat with us. And we did not allow screens at the table. We had conversation. We still don't allow screens at the table. But there were many times over the years that servers would say, oh my goodness, I love seeing a family sit and talk to each other, and we just don't see that. And we would also have people who would ask to be moved when we were sat next to them, because I think they thought that like our kids were going to be loud and disruptive. So yeah, I wish that I would not have felt the pressure from people, that who knows if it was really there or not. But I'm sorry, kids, if my big kids are listening. I'm sorry I just didn't run down the aisles with you more.
You've only been doing this mom thing for
right.
however many years.
Yes.
We'll have to link this commercial. I'll have to find it. It's been years since I've seen it. It's been out for a while. And I say commercial. It's like a video on social media. I don't know if it's an ad for actually anything. But the message of it is what I loved. And there's all these different moms at a park, and it shows all these different scenes of moms doing things that you would kind of assign to being like opposing camps of parenting, like of mothering. So you've got one mom that's breastfeeding, and then one mom that's bottle feeding, and then you've got one mom that is like wearing her baby, and then the other one that has her baby like, I don't know, in the stroller or whatever. And one mom that's given a piece of sugary candy, and then the other one that's given their child like an organic veggie straw, whatever it is. It's all these different kind of, and it shows the filming is done in a way where it's kind of showing like these kind of judgy glances from the moms to one another. Like, I can't believe she would do that. And then towards the end of it, one of the a stroller with a baby in it starts to roll down this paved pathway through the park, like down this hill where it's, oh no, like somebody's baby's rolling away. And what you see then is everybody stops. What happens is, I get emotional thinking about it. What happens is everybody just stops what they're doing, and all of the moms run after the stroller. And what I always took away from that is, we're all just doing our best.
Yes.
We're all just doing what we think is right for our babies, for our kids. And that doesn't mean we're always getting it right, but we have to be so careful when we are tempted to judge other women and other moms and the choices that other families make, and to try to assume that they're doing what they think is best, even if we know that it's not best. Like whether it's a type of food or something that doesn't seem safe. Like Gretchen, you're with all your boys. I always thought, oh my land, I cannot believe that she's letting them do that. Like whatever, like being outside and being active and
climbing to the top of trees.
Amazing. And you shared with me years ago about some of the research that talks about children who are allowed to take risks and how important that is. And that's always kind of stuck with me, because one of our girls has zero fear. And so she's always kind of freaked us out. Like when we went to Grandfather Mountain when she was maybe 9, she just got out of the car and we got to the very top where the Mile High Bridge is. She just took off running to the edge. And I know everybody thought, oh my land, that child's going to, this is going to be a terrible day for their family. But she was just the first one across the swinging bridge. She's all the child wants to go anywhere and everywhere. She has no fear. And that has been hard for us to kind of figure out, like, what do we allow? What's a safe degree of risk?
I think crazily we have always kind of erred on the side of allowing risk. And from the time the kids were little, we've always done pretty strenuous hikes. And so it became a tradition. If you are a hiker, that they will have signs on the trail that says, basically like no children allowed, dangerous falling rock, cliff. And so we have a tradition of all the kids standing around that sign and taking a picture every time.
You are such a rebel. That's amazing.
But they all, because that was a part of our family culture and it was something that we did, they all can set up camp. They pretty much all can start a fire and cook food over a fire. And so we know, like, if they're going to take their, go camping with their friends, we know they know what to do. And so all of our boys have hiked Angela's Landing and Zion, so we have allowed them to take risks. And I think, at least for the personalities of our boys and our daughter too, that has been something that has benefited them into adulthood. They have a lot of self-awareness as far as danger and their capacity, like you said, of knowing their capacity.
Gretchen, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I don't know if it feels like a mistake. I don't know if it's completely a mistake or if it's just a learning process, but I feel like one of the mistakes that I made was I feel like I kept a lot of my spiritual journey to myself when my kids were younger. And, instead of sharing, mommy is praying about this and going through this, and looking back, I wish I would have shared more of that and showed them, like, this is what God showed me in scripture this morning. And this is what I learned when I went through this or read this, or I wish I would have shared more of my personal journey with them. I feel like a lot of what I did was teaching them, and, with homeschooling, with having, all them home, it was a lot of teaching and instructing them. But I wish I would have shared more of my process and to make them see my walk with Jesus as this more organic, day-to-day kind of thing. I feel like, looking back, I kept that to myself more, and I wish, if they would have understood it or not, and not to overshare. I definitely think as parents we can probably overshare, but just to share kind of that process. I wish I would have done that more. So I feel like that is a mistake.
Well, I will say that it's not too late.
It is not too late. You're right.
You still have your kids.
And I do need to share that more with them.
This is a conversation that I feel like every time we record, I know that in the days that follow, we're going to both continue to have more things that come to mind. Let's talk about action steps. Okay, so one is to just have a conversation with a mom friend or a friend, another parent. Process through what you're hearing, what you're thinking. If you don't have somebody that you're confiding in about parenting struggles and just the things that you're kind of processing and experiencing, find somebody who's in a similar season of life, or somebody who's beyond you, who has some wisdom and perspective, and just be willing to be vulnerable about the things that are hard. And I think you'll find some refining and some encouragement there. And then another action step would be just kind of consider the things that you have heard in these conversations, or maybe things that you've encountered from other places, because the Lord will put things in your heart and around you to guide you in the direction that He desires for you in your life and your family. Is there anywhere where you feel like the Lord is maybe asking you to consider a pivot? So I know for myself it was spanking, and then I realized this is not honoring my family, not my children, not me. It's not moving us in the right direction. So for us, that was one particular pivot that we chose. But whatever that might be for you, if there's kind of this stirring in your spirit where you feel like the Lord's asking you to consider making a change or an adjustment, pray about that and ask the Lord to guide you and to convict you, not to condemn you, but to convict you in that. And to, if you are married or if you are co-parenting, then have those conversations in partnership with the people who will be caring for your children.
Parenting, like we've said so many times, is just a sanctifying process. And we just need to approach it from a place of humility with our friends, with our children, with the people in our lives, and allow ourselves to be teachable like we want our children to be teachable.
Very much. Well said. Thank you for finding a moment with us. And when we return, we will be sharing some conversations that we've had with some other moms who are willing to get vulnerable and honest about what they're experiencing, what they're encountering, what the narratives and the voices are telling them as they are raising children today. And I look forward to sharing their honest feedback and their honest experiences with you all. So thanks for finding a moment, and we'll see you next time.